see the mice go still in terror at the long dragon vessels nearing. They are born knowing they can be swallowed whole. Like them, I have wondered how long it takes to die when you are eaten and made to watch.
Nikky Finney is not only a poet, but a storyteller, the kind of voice that weaves through the air in a room until every person there feels that much closer together. Her poems travel the world, from her home in South Carolina to the stage at the National Book Awards, where she was lauded for her prize-winning book, Head Off and Split. The journeys Finney guides her readers on across the page are filled with curiosity and overflowing with lush sounds until you feel sure you would follow her anywhere. Finney's work takes on the lives of humans in whole and in miniature, from the depths of history to the hands held before your eyes. As she was taught as a young poet, Finney reminds us that, quote, "You can say the hard thing beautifully," end quote. Her poetry reminds us to always look closer, to always reach for understanding, and, even if it may never come, that the reaching can be enough. I'm Rebecca Hoogs, the Executive Director of Seattle Arts and Lectures. You're listening to Sal on Air, a collection of talks from the world's best writers from 37 years of Seattle Arts and Lectures. Nikky Finney has spent her career illuminating the Southern cultural and political heritage of Black people in ways that resonate throughout the country and the world. Influenced by the civil rights and Black arts movements, Finney has written 6 books and hundreds of poems and essays that belie how her distinct eye strips the world of its mess. In work like her collection, Love Child, Hotbed of Occasional Poetry, she reminds us that poetry is an everyday occurrence in the most fantastic way there is. Following the reading, I had the immense privilege of joining Finney on stage for a joyous conversation which ranged from her long-time practice of journaling, stories of her family farm, and how sensitivity brings poets to life. Finney made us laugh and think as she demonstrated her incredible memory for detail, doubled over with putting words to those gifts of memory. This is Sal on Air.
Wow. Hi, Seattle. How are you? It's so great to, I asked them to cut the lights up a little so I could see who was out there. It's so good to see you. I haven't been back here in a long, long time, maybe over 10 years. The last time I was here, I had a reading, a passionate, loud reading just like that welcome at the Richard Hugo House. So it's been a long time. A lot has happened. I have a lot to say, as I normally do, so I'll get right to it. Jaron James was awesome. Where is she? I have to tell you a secret, because that's what poets do. So we were backstage, and she's 15, and I started writing passionately when I was about 15, and so she was very nervous. Don't tell her I said this. But she asked me, what should I do? And I said, well, I'll tell you what I said to my grandmother when I was a little older than you. My grandmother looked at me when I said, I'm nervous. I have these butterflies every time I get up to read my work. And she said, does it matter to you? And I said, yes. Oh, there she is. She's coming into the theater now. And so grandmother said, does it matter to you? And I said, yes, of course. And she said, well, you worry if you don't have butterflies. Because the minute you don't have butterflies, then you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. So. A woman with keys. I am a woman with keys, without a door, my wide-angle perfect size. Still I pass through and the space is made to fit. My spaceship hands, this waterfall of feet, these ship-size eyes, the very air it shapes to me. Keys jingle and fish fly protectively around my waist. I am a woman with keys, and all the doors are nailed, dented shut with hammers, unlikely to ever open on their own. But I am a key woman. I come jingling, and there is a ringing in my ear that is song, how I enter. I am quilted down with eyes and scale. This is jewelry on my belt from the living behind us. I enter, then I knock. I am a woman with keys, and this long middle sash of sorrow stays tightly tied and is given to the yellow chicken wind for whipping. Do you hear that jingle? As I go slow, I am a woman with keys, the mother of memory. I come to go as I please. You know I have been here by the sound of locks swinging free from Zanzibar to Dafusky to Alligator Swamp. All along the ocean's floor there are attics and storm cellars of hearts, castanetting for a key. A black cobblestone of family has never held its breath. You tell them I am on my way. I, a woman with keys, unlocking the buildings that now belong to me. They were much more quiet in Portland last night. I like this crowd. You're like one part church and one part rock concert. I like that. That's cool. You can invite me back anytime. So I'm reading now from my second book of poetry called Rice. And you'll hear me all night thank people or embarrass people because backstage so many people came up and I hadn't seen them in a long time. And I want to call their name, but the first name I want to call is the name of Richie Havens. Think of him, play some Richie Havens music this week as the sun beams down on you in Seattle and the rain comes in on Saturday. Okay, we won't talk about that. But play some Richie Havens music, please. I also want to call the name of Colleen McElroy, who's here. And Colleen, where are you? Yeah, right there. So I wasn't Jaron's age, but I was a much younger poet when I started looking for poets out in the world who were saying things in the kind of precise, profound, sensory-rich way that I felt that I wanted to learn how to emulate and imitate. And that lady right there was leading the charge. Colleen McElroy, for me, has always been one of those poetic stars in the sky that I'm so honored to have her here in the audience tonight, but also she's been somebody who reached out to me as another poet and just said, I'm here. And I thank you so much for that. That's a precious, priceless thing. And I still read your work with a student's eyes. And I know that I always will. So I'm glad that you're here. This is the story of my father's birth. My father is 83 years old, and we were at a family reunion once. And, you know, part of the loveliness of being a poet is that you always get to be nosy. And my great aunts were under a tree talking about my father's birth, and it was a story that I had never heard before. My father walks with a limp, and he also has really, really bad feet. And I didn't know why. I knew that had something to do with his birth, but he never talked about it. And so after listening in, this was the story that I heard them talking about, that they were basically whispering about. The afterbirth, 1931. We were a colored clan of kinfolk who threw soil, not salt, over our shoulders, who tendered close the Bible, who grew and passed around the almanac at night, so we would know what to plant at first light. Black soil and sweet brown sorghum from the every morning biscuits that Mama Susan fixed, dripping and mixing up under our fingernails, a secret salve just like any other, living simple, keeping to our proud selves, quite aware of night riders, quite aware of men with politicious smiles, who walked by cologned with kerosene and match, aware of just whose feet walked across our tin roofs at night. We were such light sleepers, such long-distance believers. We were a family pregnant whose water had broken, and for once there was ham money, tobacco money, so we thought to do better by ourselves, to begin our next row, we would go and get him, because he was medically degreed in baby bringing, because he was young and white and handsome, and because of that had been neighbor to more knowledge there in the city than us back behind the country's proud but inferior lines. And because he came with his papers in his pocket, so convincing, so soon after his Ivy graduation, asking us, hadn't we heard? Asking us and telling us that the times had changed and the midwife wasn't safe anymore, even though we had all been caught by tried and true black grannies who lay the axe blade sharp side up and the water pan underneath the bed to cut the pain, to cool the fever. We were a pregnant clan of kinfolk caught with water running down our legs. Old families say they can remember going to fetch him, telling him that it was time now, that he should come now, but he didn't show right away. Not right away, but came when he wanted, the next day, after his breakfast. But what more could we colored country folks ever want, even if we had to watch the road all night for him, even if we had to not let her push too hard? When he finally came, he had his papers on him, something with one of those pretty shiny seals. Old families say they can remember. Something just wasn't right. But we opened the screen for him anyway, trusting and tendering close what the good book had told us all our lives to do. Then we made him a path where he put his hands up, then inside my grandmother's womb, her precious, private, pleasing place, somewhere he didn't probably want to touch. Then he pulled my daddy through, somebody he probably didn't care to reach for, and from the first, he pulled him wrong. And wrong shattered his collarbone and snapped his soft baby foot in half and smashed the cartilage in his infant hand. Wringing their own sun-baked arms, old-timey family remember him well, say they knew something wasn't right. As he came through the door a day late, his breakfast digested now. Something just wasn't right. How he had 2 waters on him, one sweet, one sour mash, one trying to throw snow quilt over the other. As he uncarefully, drunkenly, he with his papers on him still, stood there turning a brown baby into blue, unmagically and right before our very eyes. Hope and pray, hope and pray. Then he packed his bag and left. With all of his official training and gathered up gold stars, he left the Virginia land of Cumberland County. He left and forgot. He left and didn't remember the afterbirth inside Carlene, Godwin, Finney. He left it to clabber, to gangrene, to close down her place, her precious, private pleasing place, to fill the house to the rafters, up past the dimpled tin roof with a rotting smell that stayed for 9 days, that mortgaged a room in our memories and did not die along with her. We were a brown and pregnant family, and he would have remembered his schooling and left his bottle, recollected his manners and brought his right mind, had another clan called him to their bedside. He would have come right away. He would have never had liquor on his breath if the color of my daddy's broken limbs had matched the color of his own. But we were a colored clan of kinfolk who should have met him at the door, should have told him to lean first into the screen, made him open up his mouth and blow, breathe out right there. Then for good measure, we should have made him blow once again into Papa Josh's truth-telling jar. Just to be sure, we should have let Mama Sally, then Aunt Nanny, then lastly Aunt Mary give him the final once over and hold his sterile hands down to the firelight to check. Just like she checked our own every night before supper, before we were allowed to sit at her very particular table. We could have let Aunt Ira clutch him by his chin, enter and leave through his eyes, just like how she came and went through us every day at her leisure. She would have took care to notice as she traveled all up and through him, any shaking, any sweating, and caught his incapable, belligerent incompetence in time. We should have let Grandpop Robert have him from the first, should have let him pick him up by the back of his pants and swirl him around, just like he picked us up and swirled us around anytime he caught us lying or lazy or being less than what we were. We should have let Grandpop loose on him from the start, and he would have held him up high-eyed to the sun and looked straight through him, just like he held us up. And then he would have known first, like he always knew first, and brought to us the very map of his heart. Then we would have known just what his intentions were with our Carlene. Before we knew his name or cared about his degrees, before he dared reach up then inside our family's brown globe, while we stood there, some of us throwing good black soil with one hand, some of us tending close the good book with the other, believing and trusting we were doing better by this one. Standing there with white water waterfalls, running, screaming white water rapids down our pant legs, down our pantaloons, to our many selves, all the while we at the screen praying hard that maybe we were wrong. Please, God, make us wrong. And 100 proof smell the same as isopropyl. My father didn't know that story until I wrote it. He didn't know it in the detail, and he was in the audience the first time I read it. And I was trying to read the poem to him, and I saw his shock and surprise at some of the details that happens sometimes in families where you don't want to pass the truth along. And so there is always the power of trying to figure out as daughter and as poet, should I say that? Should I write that down? But we so need the truth. There's so many secrets that should be brought up to the day and up to the light so that those kinds of things don't continue. I became a poet partly because I couldn't believe some of the things that have happened in history. And one of the things, I don't shy away from, Rebecca's right, I don't shy away from writing about really hard things. I had great teachers like Tony K. Bambara, who taught me that you may say the hard thing beautifully. And that was my goal as a poet and a writer. And as I got older and I was in graduate school, and undergraduate and graduate school, I was taking notes on the world, and some of those notes were really hard to ingest. And this is a poem called The Greatest Show on Earth, and it's in the third book called The World is Round. And it's for Sarjay Bartman, Joyce Heth, Anarcha of Alabama, True Janini, and us all. And these names, Sarjay Bartman, some of you know, was a South African woman who was put on display in France because of the size of her hips. She was from a people in South Africa where the women had beautiful, glorious, large hips. And the European person who first saw her as somebody he could make money off of. So he put her on display, charged a fee, and made a lot of money because she was naturally who she was. Joyce Heth, the second name, was the nurse for George Washington, and she had a skin disease. And she was asked by P.T. Barnum, back in the day when he was beginning his sideshow with his circus, if she would like to make some money on how odd she looked because of her skin. So his wealth was also made partly on Joyce Heth's oddness. Anarcha of Alabama, there is a man by the name of Dr. Sims, and he is thought to be the father of gynecology in America, and he invented the speculum. But it wasn't, that's never the whole story. And he invented the speculum by taking enslaved African women in Alabama and doing experiments on them to see how these devices would fit inside them. And he did this without any anesthesia. And so these are just some of many, many stories. These aren't, but you have to want to know this, because you don't get this from going to school. You get this because you want to know what you're not being told. And it's out there, but you have to dig for it, and you have to want to know really what the world is, not what you're being told the world is. The greatest show on earth. Under glass and tent, floating in formaldehyde jelly, curled in a dead man's float, live the split-spread, unanesthetized legs of black women broken like the stirrups of a wishbone. Somebody got their wish, and somebody didn't. The lilac plumage of our petal genitalia in all its royal mauve and plum rose, with matching eggplant hips that pull the ocean across itself each night. Boats of peanut skin, folded and rolled like the new fur, all proof of our pathology, all cut away by pornographic hands, fascinated with difference and the spectacle of being a black woman. So the normal pay their 50 cents to see what makes a freak a freak. Go ahead, walk around her. She won't bite. She is the headless woman. See her protruding mass. Stay topaigia. We don't have to be dead first to be cut into manageable size. One that fits their measuring rods, their medicine chests will not rest until we are properly pried. It has always been about opening us up, experimenting with black women, but never dissecting their own desires. The sideshow was pitched on our backs, the speculum hammered out between our legs, modern medicine founded on the world of our hips. We, the standard pattern girth of every bustle skirt ever made. Black woman is spectacle, wanting to but afraid to die, knowing that death would never end such sterling silver lust. Bodies quake whole lifetimes in a National Geographic tremble until the obituary arrives, which says, "Please bury me behind the mountains so they can never find me again." But they do find us, do dig us back up, retrieve the last swatches of soft skin, the last twig of curved brown bone, our open pirouetting vaginas, our African music boxes, whittled down to perfect change purse size. For the normal, who will always pay their 50 cents to be sure and see what makes a freak a freak. When I was born, my mother always cries when she tells this story. I had to leave you in the hospital for an extra week. And then my dad, who's like in the next room with his back, you don't even know he's heard, what she's saying, will go, yeah, you had to bake a little longer, or something like that. And he's like, that's the problem with you. You stayed there too long. We should have come for 3 days instead of letting you bake for 6 days. I was in an incubator. I had yellow jaundice. He calls it baking a little longer. I call it becoming my own baby girl self or something. But I don't remember this with my mind. I remember this with my body. And I remember there was a nurse. I said, Mom, there was a nurse, and she was so gentle and tender, and her hand would come through that old circle in the plastic and check on me. She said, you remember that? I said, I think I do. I don't know. The world is round. I began this side of life as infant photographer, focusing with the moving middle eye, the round umbilical cord where it melded into the body center like a vacuum sucking in the sights. Not with any eye, but with skin did I see this. Do I remember now? The skin can so remember. This picture that I first took of touch, here in the studio body of birth, first photograph of feeling, anchored by something other than the liquid albumin world where I had lived from the first. Only 1 hour old, and I remember unlatching my eyes to see the tiny incubating opening where I'd already lived for a week. The warm, stale air pouring in on me, not with my mind, but with full body camera. Do I remember this? The perfect circular opening, round just like the end beginning of the cord, round like the camera's eye that I would one day accidentally flutter inside of, discovering silky stems of wildebeest poems growing. I can't show you any photographs of this to prove what I'm telling you is true. I am remembering this not with my mind, but with my body. The body can so remember what long ago left the accidental scene of the eye. I love when you say that. That is so good. I want to get you on tape so I can take you to other places and I can it's so, and you're on, everybody's like, okay, never mind. So I'm very visual. If I could paint, I probably wouldn't write poetry. Well, I don't know about that. But I really want you to see what I'm talking about. So I spend a lot of time working on the visual in the work. And so there's a photograph that's about this big, and it's a black and white, and it has that little scalloped edge that they don't have anymore. And it's a picture of my family, my dad, my mom, and my oldest brother and me, and we're in a bed at my grandparents' farm in upstate South Carolina, and it was the only other bed in the house that my grandfather built. And so anybody who came to visit and didn't leave before sundown had to sleep in that bed. And it was a bed about this big. And my mom said whenever we got in that bed, I would wait for everybody to get settled. And then I would climb over my brother, and then over my father, and then over my mom, and I had to get by the wall. I insisted at 3 that I had to be by the wall. And she was like, what was going on? And I was like, I don't know. And she said, then you would stare, and here's the wall, or here's the wall. And I would stare at the wall until I fell asleep. And I think I was The farm was so visual and so dramatic and so sensory rich. I think I was going through the film of the day and then falling asleep. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. I like that. So I wrote my first film. It's called Coda, and it's in the book, it's the third book called The World is Round. So I'm just going to read you a part of it because it's a long film. So tell me after if you can see what I'm telling you, okay? It's a test. Coda. We are four to a bed. So close our hips must come with hinges. A ticking of brown family thrown across the cotton and feather mattress of winter, tucked deep inside the house my grandfather raised up from the red earth straight into the woolly air. The black and white photograph isn't supposed to predict the future, but my mother looks like my unborn brother. And even at 3, I am different. My tiny black girl eyes are a queer shade of green. At 5, my brother stands there on the inn, already buttoned into my father's sense of place. We are so close in this cherry bed. Our lightly touching hips must surely be hinged. Even the children have them. Daddy has moved into place next to Mama. Mama has moved in next to me. I am the only one awake, the only one with a wall. The whole house has fallen. The movie begins. Uncle Billy is home from Vietnam. He is the baby. In the ruddy speckle flicker, he stands before us with a new camera that the war bought for him. I call Uncle Billy the Bonneville man. Just like Pop Leo, he can fix anything. Unlike him, he will only drive a car if it's long and pretty. 30 years later, the Bonneville man will die with AIDS, alone in another bed, without hinges. A dozen headlights polka dot the night screen wall. Every long, pretty car he ever owned drives by to pay their last respects. He snaps the picture of us all, and horns blow out in a scatter like blue Cadillac whales. We are a charm bracelet of a family bedding down for the night. We are in the outback of my mother's country. We have been laid flat for the sake of photography. By midnight, more of us have joined more of us. We lop around the old 4-poster in a 3-dimensional ring like a black family cutout doll. We are joined at the hip inside the old home house. We have been hinged together in a place pulled from the red ribs of ancient Indian land, Newberry. We are Southern, North American Africans. When we sleep together, the rubbing of our bones makes for a better crop. Daddy's hip bone click-clacks into place next to Mama, and a new brother, 7 years, 10 pounds, and 8 ounces away from birth, snuggles in next to me. The new tenant brother takes up space I thought was all mine, but Mama says not to move him. She says he's the last one. She says he will always need more of her. The silver queen has already been harvested. The second reel begins. Down the road, somebody passes a new baby over a new grave, freshly packed with seashells. The simmering dust spins off the blue corn silk. The ochre wind patty cakes the glass until dawn. I know better than to sing along. Mama would only turn and shush me, tell me to stop playing with myself. This is why I sleep by the wall, for company. So the movie will always have a screen, so the screen will always have a witness. Now all I have to do is live. Big brother there on the inn suddenly turns. I follow, tumbling in an arc of bones. Our hinges shift, but never release. My feet and body begin to rise. I leave the floor without warning. There is a white dog out in the woods howling. Pop Leo will shoot him between the eyes tomorrow, then drag him back to the clearing near the arrowhead ground. He will never explain to me what madness is and how we all can go. I am the only one awake to see the end. For 20 years, something or someone will come and lift me to the ceiling and back whenever it wishes. I will come to know this as brown girl levitation. The black snakes are tunneling under the hay in the barn for warmth. I see the mice go still in terror at the long dragon vessels nearing. They are born knowing they can be swallowed whole. Like them, I have wondered how long it takes to die when you are eaten and made to watch. I was in Philadelphia, and it was winter, and it was snowing, and everybody came in and sat down just like you did, except one woman who came in and stayed in the back of the room. And as I read, I saw her, and I was like, wow, she's not sitting down. And then the reading was over, and then everybody filed out, and we had the book signing, and then she came down the aisle very slowly, and she walked up to me, and I had my eye on her, and she said, hey, you write like a black woman who's never been hit before. The Girlfriend's Train. I read poetry in Philly for the first time ever. She started walking up all the way from in back of the room. From against the wall she came, big coat, boots, eyes soft as candles and two storms blowing. Something she could not see from way back there, but could clearly hear in my voice. Something she needed to know before pouring herself back out into the icy city night. She came close to get a good look, to ask me something she found in a strange way missing from my black woman poetry. Sidestepping the crowd, ignoring the book signing line, she stood there waiting for everyone to go, waiting like some kind of representative. And when it was just the two of us, she stepped into the shoes of her words. Hey, she said, you write real soft, spell it out kind, no bullet holes, no open wounds in your words. How do you do that? Write like you've never been hit before. I could hardly speak. All my breath held ransom by her question. I looked at her and imagined there must be a train on pause somewhere, maybe just outside the back door where she had stood listening, a train with boxcars that she was escorting somewhere when she heard about the reading and came in. A train with boxcars carrying broken women's bodies, their carved up legs and bullet-riddled stomachs momentarily on pause from moving cross-country. Women's bodies, brown, black, and blue, laying right where coal, cars, and cattle usually do. She needed my answer for herself and for them too. Hey, she said, we were just wondering how you made it through and we didn't. I shook my head. I had never thought about having never been hit and what it might have made me sound like. You know how many times I've been stabbed, she asked me. She raised her blouse all the way to her breasts, the cuts on her resembling some kind of grotesque wallpaper. Tell me, she leaned closer, how many women are there like you? Then I knew for sure she had been sent in from the Philly coal by the others on the train to listen, to stand up close, to make me out as best she could. She put my hand over top hers, asked could we stand up straight back to straight back, measure out our differences right there, and then she gathered it all up, wrote down the things she could, remembering the rest to the trainload of us waiting out back for answers, full to the brim, with every age of woman, every neighborhood of woman whose name had already been forgotten. The train blew its whistle. She started to hurry. I moved towards her, and we stood back to back, her hand grazing the top of our heads, my hand measuring out our same widths, each of us recognizing the brown woman latitudes, the black woman longitudes in each other. I turned around and held up my shirt and brought my smooth belly into her scarred one, our navels pressing, marking out some kind of new equatorial lines. Okay, everybody laughs when I said I wrote a lot of poems about Condoleezza Rice. I know it sounds strange, doesn't it? But I just get curious about people. And I know that the New York Times is not telling me all the truth that I need to know. So I have to go on a little hunt, and archival research, and I always have a lot of fun. So I wrote about 9 poems, and I called the series the Condoleezza Suite, which I thought was very nice. And S-U-I-T-E, not S-W-E-E-T. And each poem is numbered and is called a concerto because she's a brilliant pianist. And so you have to use all of these facts when you're building your poem. And so I'm just going to read you one of them. It's called Concerto Number 7, Condoleezza Working Out at the Watergate. Because she lived at the Watergate, which I thought was a great fact to sort of do something with. You got to know your history in this life. I also need to tell you that Condoleezza was one of the friends, before she left Birmingham/Bombingham, one of her friends was one of the 4 black girls who was killed in the church bombing in Birmingham. Condoleezza rises at 4, stepping on the treadmill. Her long fingers brace the 2 slim handles of accommodating steel. She steadies her sleepy legs for the long day ahead. She doesn't get very far. Her knees buckle, wanting back last night's dream. Dream number 9, where she is 15 and leaning forward from the bench, playing Mozart's piano concerto in D minor, alone before the gawking, disbelieving, applauding crowd. Not dream number 2, where she is 9 and not in the church that explodes into dust. The heart pine floor giving way beneath her friend Denise, rocketing her up into the air like a jack-in-the-box of a black girl wrapped in a Dixie cross. She ups the speed on the treadmill, remembering she has to be 3 times as good. Don't mix up your dreams, Condi. She runs faster, back to the right, finally hitting her stride. Mozart returns to her side. She is 15 again, all smiles and relocated to the peaks of the Rocky Mountains, where she and the Steinway are the only black people in the room. So I'm just going to read 2 more poems, but before that, I want to embarrass a few people, if you don't mind. Bob and Liz, where are you? So these guys right here, we're in Lexington, Kentucky, where I live. I was on stage with a great musical group called the Real World String Band. It was their 30th anniversary, and somehow they finagled me to come on stage and not just read poetry, but sing. It has never happened before. It may never happen again. But Bob and Liz were there as my witness. I have a DVD of it. I'm going to send it to them. We've already discussed this backstage. But I just wanted to thank them. I told them I was coming out to Seattle and they should come. People don't always say, they say they're going to come to things and then they don't show up. Not these 2. I thank you. It's good to see you again. And this is just... backstage, I was struck by so many people. I met Jay and Howard from Tucson, and they're here too. Where are you? Right there. Okay, so they flew from Tucson for this night. Come on. Do I feel like a rock star? Yes. I've been on the road for 18 months with, since the National Book Award. I have a life called BNBA, before the National Book Award, and ANBA, after the National Book Award. And you have to, if you had my grandmother, you understand how my feet are solidly on the ground, and Both of them are beautiful lives. But it's in the after National Book Award moment that I have met some just amazing people who have just reminded me why I do the work that I do and why it's important to do it. And I was talking to Jay and Howard, and they flew in. It's just, I'm a little speechless about that. And I just wanted to thank them for coming. And the last people that I wanted to thank are Nikky and Larry Swingle, who, I know you're here, where are you? Right there. So look, this is how, you know, what's that show, This Is Your Life, or whatever this is? When I started teaching at the University of Kentucky, I had no idea how to teach writing. I was this green poet who lived in California from South Carolina, and somebody gave me an opportunity to be a poet in a real way at the University of Kentucky. And Nikky Swingle, right there on that row, treated me like a daughter, came to everything I read. Every time I did anything, she was there, clapping, you know, saying, you know, one day you're gonna win the National Book Award, keep going. Okay, she didn't really say that. But the way she loved me out loud, the way she loved me out loud and didn't know me, that's what I'm talking about. And so I haven't seen her for a long, long time because her precious daughter lives up this way and we lost them from Kentucky, and I haven't seen you. I don't even want to count the years. But she knew me when I was, you know, when nobody knew me. When nobody knew me. And she didn't treat me like that. She treated me like this. And so I thank you. Okay, so that's my show for that. So, two more poems and then we'll talk. So Katrina hit New Orleans, and I was walking by the TV and I saw a woman holding a sign that said, please. And I wrote this poem called Left. And it begins with an epigraph from Rudyard Kipling, Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. The woman with cheerleading legs has been left for dead. She hot paces a roof 4 days, 3 nights. Her leaping fingers, helium arms rise and fall, pulling at the week-old baby in the bassinet, pointing to the 82-year-old grandmother, fanning and raspy in the New Orleans Saints folding chair. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. 3 times a day, the helicopter flies by in a low crawl. The grandmother insists on not being helpless. So she waves a white handkerchief that she puts on and takes off her head toward the cameraman and the pilot, who remembers well the art of his mirrored-eyed posture in his low-flying helicopter. Bong son, dong ha, pleiku, chu lai. He makes a slow Viet Cong dip and dive, a move known in rescue as the observation pass. The roof is surrounded by broken levee water. The people are dark, but not broken. Starving, abandoned, dehydrated, brown and cumulus, but not broken. The 400-year-old anniversary of observation begins again. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, ketcha. The woman with pom-pom legs waves her uneven homemade sign. It says, please, help, please. And even if the E has been left off of the please, do you know simply by looking at her that it has been left off because she can't spell and therefore is not worth saving? Or was it because the water was rising so fast there wasn't time? Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, ketcha. The low-flying helicopter does not know the answer. It catches all of this on patriotic tape, but does not land and does not drop dictionary or ladder. Regulations require an E be at the end of any please before any national response can be taken. Therefore, it takes 4 days before the National Council of Observers will consider dropping 1 bottle of water or 1 case of dehydrated baby formula on the roof where the E has rolled off into the flood. Where 4 days later, not the mother, not the baby girl, but the determined hanky waver, whom they were both named for, has now been covered up with a green plastic window awning, pushed to the side, right where the missing E was last seen. My mother said to pick the very best one. The grandmothers were right about everything. What else would you call it, Mr. Every Child Left Behind? Anyone you know ever left off or put on an E by mistake? Potato, potato. People who outlived bullwhips and Bull Connor, historically afraid of water and routinely fed to crocodiles, left in the sun on the sticky tar heat of roofs to roast like pigs, surrounded by 40 feet of churning water in the summer of 2005, while the richest country in the world played the old observation game, studied the situation, wondered by committee what to do, counted in private by long historical division, speculated whether or not some people are surely born ready, accustomed to flood, famine, fear. My mother said to pick the very best one, and you are not it. After all, it was only Po New Orleans, old bastard city of funny spellers, non-swimmers with squeeze box accordion accents. Who would be left alive to care? So I'm haunted by poetry. I'm always writing poetry, and sometimes I try to escape poetry, and I go see a movie. And once I said I was going to go see a movie, I was going to get away from the desk, and I went down to the Kentucky Theater, and there it was playing. I knew I would be safe in its arms, a movie called March of the Penguins. I said, I'm okay. I can get away from that desk for a minute. I go to the theater. There are 4 people. It's a matinee. We're all strange and in the theater at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Yes, you know the type. There, the father penguin is half frozen, standing with the baby penguin on his feet, who is also half frozen. The mother penguin is in Hawaii somewhere, eating fish, and has been for a long, long time. And then the mother penguin comes back, smells out her family, goes right up to the baby penguin and, sorry for weak stomachs, throws up, regurgitates right in the mouth. I stand up in the middle of the theater and go, oh my God. The other 3 people look around. I say, that happened to me once. The lesson in that is you cannot escape poetry. I so appreciate this audience. You have no idea. I have a secret recording of you in my pocket. I will take you on the road with me from now on. I will talk about Seattle for a long time. Let me just say one more thing. John and Christine and Open Books. Don't you leave a book on that table tonight. This is a sacred space. In a time where bookstores are hard-pressed, go to them, go to them, go to them. I met them a long time ago. I think about them all the time. Not only are they booksellers, but they're poets. They're kind, good people, and they deserve to sell out and for you to go get those books off the shelf anytime you can. So please remember them. penguin, mullet, bread. She pulls white oily meat of mullet off the long, sharp bones of spine. The bones prick. She never once says, ouch. I watch her long fingers. 7 inches away, my eyes are 2 glossy olives glued to the delicate woman's mouth. It is summer. Behind her, the white curtains she has made move like seagrass, tall, freckled, waving just beyond. I am camera, she is the movie. She bites, then rolls, placing plump, soft chunks of fish into the side of her mouth. Her eyes grow big from what she tastes. I study her mouth, not her eyes. She chews slowly, never showing me what's there. Her tongue twists and falls. My dinner moves in slow whitefish animation. She coos like a woman who can taste any flavor in the world, a woman who can hula hoop in her own mouth. Nobody does that to that line. Man, you guys are so good. Okay. My hand rises, my fingers reach, fall short, then fall again. I want to say, Mama, pull the flesh from the throat, not the belly. The meat there has more juice than the meat around the fins, but she is the mama. I have no baby patois for what little I know of watery things. I have only 17 months of new desire. She chews down on the flesh of the fish, packs it around good until it is a perfect caramel mush. Catching some of the juice that falls with her longest finger there at the corner of her mouth, she pushes all of the sweet flesh back inside. Once or twice, she pulls out a hat-pin-sized bone in the waves of tender meat. Only then does she wear her eureka smile, holding it up in the air to show me. My wishful eyes rise. This, she says, is why you have a mama. Her empire backbone finally speaks. This is why you must never talk back to me. Why you must love, honor, and obey me. My job and her toes, pas de deux, is to feed and tell you the stories and keep you away from sharp things that might slip into your throat and never completely disappear. Her eyes plie into the slinky circles of her mouth. The sweet flesh is finally ground. Salt and snapper, spit and meal, a fine pâté. She reaches her long brown fingers deep inside her jaw. Our hinged mouths open prematurely. My fists are flying, fleshy verbs in the apple air of her kitchen. Balled in sweet anticipation. My chubby legs yoga extend into early orgasmic pose. My chin sets into downward facing dog. My begging eyes and dark mauve lips close in slow around her fingers. The pounded succulent fish and spit lands center of my tongue. I swell in my first chair ever, fed by the mother who relishes the story of turning her back and leaving me once, to swim off 1,000 miles, find food, fight off shimmering shark, then swim 1,000 miles back just to drop her beak into mine. I am the lucky girl of the high chair.
We'll be back for the rest of the event with Nikky Finney in a moment. But first, I wanted to tell you about an event coming up with Kelly Link on October 28th. Kelly Link is a Pulitzer Prize finalist and author of several bewitching short story collections, who has brought her compassion, wit, and magic to the novel for the first time in her gorgeous tome, The Book of Love. Tickets are available now for both in-person and online attendance at lectures.org. And now, more from Nikky Finney. And I have to say, that was just an amazing reading.
Oh, thank you.
I feel, as many of you probably do, I mean, we laughed and we cried, and I felt gutted at times, too, which I was thinking it was almost ironic, given what we were talking about at the beginning of your title of your book and putting things back together, and I felt so viscerally almost gutted, like a fish at times, by the power of the poems. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
Do you remember writing your first poem?
It was awful. I was on a bus. I love to write on moving things. I would write while driving if it wasn't detrimental to my life. I actually have a writing, a editing thing that I do that I love driving. And so when I'm stuck, as a student asked me today about writer's block, and I told her I didn't believe in writer's block because I asked her to raise her hand. I said, "Are you right-handed?" And she said, "Yeah." So I asked her to raise her right hand. I said, "Wow, that's a nice hand. That's pretty." I was like, "There's nothing wrong with your hand. You can write. So don't invest in what people tell you is writer's block." And so when I get stuck, though, sometimes I get in the car and I put a kitchen timer in the seat next to me, and I drive exactly 60 minutes, not on a road that has any lights, but on a back road. And when the thing goes off, I turn it around and I go back home. And by the time I get back home, I have an answer. It's not always the answer, but it's something has moved out of the way. This has nothing to do with what you just asked me, but.
That's good.
Oh, bus. Yeah, I was on the bus, and I wrote this terrible poem, and I remember it well, and I will not. I know it by heart, but I won't tell you. It's 4 lines, and it's terrible because I didn't. My beginnings with writing was not intended to write a poem. My writing beginnings were journals, and I kept notes on the day, and I have journals back from when. I have a tiny one with the key, that ones. I have that. I have a bookshelf of 179 journals from when I was 11 till the one in my bag in the back. And they all have a number on them now that I started doing late in life. But my first writing had to do with capturing that visual thing. It's like, what did I see? What did I hear? This farm that I talked about, I was 9. My grandfather was about to slaughter a pig, and the farmers from the other farms came. And whenever I would see them come, I would get really scared because I knew what I was about to hear. And so the hog or the pig would be hoisted up and his legs tied, and the scream of this animal made me run into the woods with my hands over my ears. I asked my brothers who were there, I said, "You remember when Pop Leo used to kill the pig?" And they were like, "What pig?" They have no memory of this, and this is how different children can be. And my mom used to call me her hypersensitive child. She wouldn't say kid. "You're my hypersensitive child," she would say. And I used to think that was terrible. But what I understood as I got older, that hypersensitivity was my access and my way into the poetry world. And so I began to protect it. And I protected it by writing in these journal books, taking notes on the world. So many, many journal books happened before a poem happened. I came to poetry later because I love the rhythm, because of the oral quality of the poem, not here, but here. And so I kind of fell into the natural rhythms and music of poetry. But at first I was just taking notes on the world. So yeah, I do remember that first awful poem, but I'm not going to say it no matter how nice an audience you are.
What first stories, either as a kid or as a young adult, so stories or poems or authors were important to you?
I really started, because of what I just said about the note-taking, I really started noticing the people in my community. And I started noticing how nobody was writing about them. And they were so amazingly nice and amazingly fascinating and amazingly gifted in so many things. There was Mr. Anderson, who was the electrician, who would always keep a pencil right here on his ear, and always sharp, and he always had on these really overalls with a crease that went right down to the bottom. And I couldn't imagine why nobody ever took a picture of him or wrote about him. And then there was Mr. Singleton at the gas station, who lost his arm in the Korean War, and he would fix cars with one arm. I was like, how does he do that? And he was fascinating to me, and nobody wrote about him, and nobody put him in the paper. And then I went to the library, and there were no books on Black folks, none. And I thought, wait a minute, Mom, come here, we gotta have a meeting. And she would say, well, I guess you're gonna have to write some books. Permission. Gerund. Permission. What you all offer her as a night for her to get up and read her poem, permission to be a poet in the world. Really important. So I was telling somebody in Portland this, there was Mr. Johns, who was a Vietnam vet, who would come to our church drunk as a skunk. He would come late, he had his seat, where everybody else had their seat, and he would sit there and he would mumble a little while, he might fall asleep. Next, we would see him out in the world, but my community, there was space for everybody. There wasn't the people weren't put away in institutions. Everybody wasn't, standing straight up. Some of us were leaning. But there was always a story to their life that was being told, and I grew up in a community where that was appreciated. And I'm trying to do the same thing with the work that I'm doing with my own poetry, is not just write about people who are always written about, but really write about people who are in the sidelines or in the margins or on the horizon. There's a poem in Head Off and Split about a man when I was in Toronto who was walking. I was sitting at a cafe, again, trying not to write a poem, and the poem, walked by me. And he had 2 bags. And he took one bag down on the corner, and I watched him. I was like, wow, where's he going? And then I realized he was probably homeless, maybe. And he put the bag down right there, and then he went back 2 blocks, and he picked up another bag. And he didn't stop at that corner, but he went to the next corner. And I said, I paid my bill, and I went to the next cafe, and I followed him down the block. It was brilliant. It was necessary. Nobody noticed him. People were just minding their own business. And I was like, how long can he do this? Where's he going? Will the 2 bags ever meet on the same corner? And that's like the last line of the poem. The 2 bags never meet on the same corner. Because I had to go home and I had to leave him. So I'm always interested in people who seem to be invisible or not seen, or nobody wants, or people are uncomfortable looking at them. I want to be the one saying, no, you got to look at us, because this is us. There but for the grace of God go I.
You mentioned permission and giving permission, and were there important moments of permission given to you by teachers or that you've granted yourself over the years? And similarly, what kinds of permission do you try to give your students?
Yeah. I had this 10th grade permission. I had permission all around me in all kinds of ways. I had a 10th grade English teacher who I had my first sheaf of poems ready to go to, Knopf, when I was, yeah, it was funny. And so I gave them to my 10th grade English teacher, and she said, dear. I love that. I know I'm getting ready to get slaughtered when that happens. She said, you don't have any Are you trying to be, Ezra Pound? You don't have any capitals. You don't have E.E. Cummings. You don't have any capitals in these poems. And she said, you have to learn the rules in order to break the rules. That was the greatest early lesson I've ever had as a poet, as a writer. Learn the rules and then break the rules, because I was breaking all the rules and I didn't know what I was doing. And then she gave me a path, a permission path to, yes, be myself, but also be myself and know who I was when I was becoming myself. Nikki Giovanni, I met when I was a junior in college. Great permission. She came and was doing an arts festival. And my English teacher, this is what I mean by the people who sort of pushed me forward, said, you have 5 poems ready for Nikki Giovanni when she comes on campus. And I was like, what? You don't want me to give them? Yes, you're going to give them to her. So I worked on them. I had them under the seat. We went and picked her up from the airport. And I couldn't pull them out until we were taking her back to the airport. And I gave them to her early. These are my poems. She said, what did you say, dear? These are my poems. My name is Nikky Finney. 5 days later, dorm room, no cell phones. You see the gray hair? We didn't have cell phones. We had those big wooden telephone booths in the hallway, right? Phone rings, you know everybody's business because they say, Julie, your mom's on the phone, or Nikki, your dad. Nikki Giovanni's calling. Everybody's head pops out of the room. I go out, I say, hello? She goes, Nikki, this is Nikki. My mom and I have sat down at the kitchen table and we have red marked every one of your poems. There's a lot of red marks on these poems. I just want you to know. I was like, okay, are you sending them back? Yes. Underneath the red is something beautiful trying to happen. Come on. I still have that. I found out that her mother, who was an English teacher, really did most of the red marking. I didn't find this out for 10 years. But the permission, the generosity, you have to be generous in this life. You have to be. It comes back tenfold. I was trying to talk to Jaren in the back just a little bit because I could see her, and I was listening to her beautiful poem and I was like, be generous, let her know. And so she came off stage and I said, that was perfect. And she was just beaming. You don't know how long that lasts. It lasts a long, long time in this life. So be generous, all of us.
Yeah. I'm so glad you talked about Nikki Giovanni, and your latest book is also dedicated to Lucille Clifton. And I wanted to ask you what Lucille meant to you, what she means to you.
I was in Strand's bookstore in New York City. I was 24 years old. I was thinking about my first book, but I didn't know exactly what I would do. I love photography. I love the visual. I saw Lucille Clifton's first book, Generations, a memoir with photographs from her own family. So if you see my book, Rice, there's a long story in between, I totally stole the idea from Lucille Clifton. Total permission to put photographs next to poetry. Family history that she was doing. Rice is full of family history as well. And so it wasn't a memoir piece, but I thought if I could take those photographs that were in a shoebox underneath somebody's bed and bring them out in a book, that would be part of my responsibility as a poet. And so she really, I didn't meet her until the last 4 years of her life. We had a poet conference, a Black poetry conference in Virginia. And I was supposed to be on stage in a panel saying something about something. And there Lucille Clifton was in the audience, and I started to perspire. And I thought, okay, I can't let this moment go. So I took the program and I wrote a love letter to her. Dear Miss Lucille. And instead of doing what I was supposed to be doing, I took the microphone and read it. I said, Dear Miss Lucille, I was in Strand's bookstore, la, 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 la. And so that's how we met. Because I knew it was a moment, I didn't know where I would see her again. And then I did an interview with her for a edited collection of poetry. And it was just beautiful. I was so nervous. I arrived at her house a year later. I had borrowed a tape recorder from the library. And as I pulled up to her house in Columbia, Maryland, there she was standing at the door like, somebody's mama or auntie. And I was like 1 minute late. And I got out of the car and I dropped the tape recorder. And she was like, "Come in, child, come." And she had little finger sandwiches and potato chips on a tray ready for me. I ate everything in front of me.
You talk in the last poem in the book, the most recent book, about, quote, daughters who have perfected the art of leaving. Mm-hmm. And I know you're moving home to South Carolina this summer after 20 plus years away.
20 years, 10 months, and 2 weeks.
Do you foresee a similar art of going home in your future? How do you imagine it will impact your writing?
I have no idea. I know that I only know my heart and belly tell me that it's time to go home. My mom is turning 80 in November, and my dad is 83. My brothers and their families are there. I left home when I was 17 because I believed I could not become the writer that I wanted to become in South Carolina. You have to leave home, I think. That doesn't mean you don't have to go back home. Mm-hmm. And that's the difference, especially if you can go back home being the person that you are proud of, doing the kind of writing that you are proud of. The tricky thing is to not let it change you, because your mama is closer than she used to be, and she's still looking at you out of the side of her eye going, "You writing about what? Don't you ever write daffodil poetry?" She tries. She comes and she goes, "I found this brochure on magnolia trees. Interested?" So I don't know how it's going to affect me. I know it will affect me. I know this. And I will hopefully take it in like I've taken in every other adventure and emotional. Tennessee Williams says the emotional terrain is always true. And that's true for me. And I live by that. And so I want to know what this feels like at this moment in my life. And I think there will be poetry, and I think there will be books. And I hope I can be as honest as I have grown up to be. Yeah.
That seems like a wonderful place to end. Thank you so much, Nikky. It was an honor to host Nikky Finney in 2013 and to revisit that beautiful evening today on the podcast. If you enjoyed listening, we welcome you to join us in person or virtually for our 37th season as we hear from authors like Abraham Verghese, Percival Everett, Naomi Shihab Nye, and more. Get your tickets at lectures.org. Thank you to the Seattle Arts and Lectures staff, board, and community, and thanks to all of you for listening. Our show is produced by Jack Straw Cultural Center with theme music by Daniel Spills. To hear more, subscribe from wherever you get your podcast, and while you're there, rate and review us 5 stars so that more people can enjoy Sal on Air.